Alright, what's up guys? Welcome back to another Beach Boys album ranking video. So, today, up to number 25, we've made it to an increment in the series, I can say. So, I think this is the first review where we see the album starting to seriously improve, going from scattershot and not great to where we start seeing actually really solid albums. And, without further ado, today's review, you see it in the title, here in the background, Beach Boys, self-titled from 1985. So, basically, I actually already did a review of this. I recorded the whole thing. It was really long. I put in a lot of effort to it. But I forgot a song. I forgot to review one of the songs, and I kind of just rushed the whole thing, and it didn't really come out that well. So, doing it again, you guys won't be able to see that first part, but anyway. So, lots of thoughts on this one. I'm going to try to get right into it without wasting too much time. So, for backstory, the last album the Beach Boys made before this one was Keeping the Summer Alive in 1980. And, you know, that was basically their last classic album, as I said in the last review, or in the Keeping the Summer Alive review. You know, it was the last with Dennis. It was their last for 5 years. It was the last with their classic, you know, the late 70s production. And it was just the last with the full classic lineup, you know. So, that was an end of an era in a lot of ways, that album. And, you know, after that, the band was just in turmoil. They were not getting along. Carl left to do a solo career in 80, 81, 82, 83, somewhere around there. I think 81, 82. Dennis died in 83. He drowned. So, you know, that was a huge shot to the band. Like, their founding member, their drummer, the founding member, their drummer, and, you know, the real Beach Boy was gone. So that really, you know, rocked the band up. That was like a holy shit moment. Like, what do we do now? Brian was having issues, you know. He, at one point, he was so overweight, so unhealthy, and doing so many drugs that it was actually thought that he only had 6 months left to live. This was in like 82. And Dr. Landy, he got back with him, put him into shape, and if you look at the back of the album, you could see the guys. He was fit as hell for this one, and he basically stayed like that through the 80s, which was really impressive, even though it wasn't with the most proper ways. You know, he didn't do this himself. Landy was the main reason why he did that, and it was lots of drugs and basically torture. So, pretty crazy story. Look it up if you haven't heard about it already. So anyway, you know, they were already in turmoil in the early 80s. They were falling apart. They were still a live band, but, you know, people really only cared about them for their oldies, and they didn't really care about the new stuff. And it had been like that way for a couple of years, so they really were confused what to do. So, anyway, after Dennis died, they were shook, but they're like, you know what? He would have wanted us to stay together. We have to, you know, be a group again, be together, and make a record. So in 84, they went in the studio with Steve Levine, the producer of the Culture Club. He produced this album. And they started working on the songs. And I think the result was not groundbreaking or a masterpiece or, you know, a completely revamped, you know, it wasn't showing the band trying to make something amazing artistically, but it was them coming back as the Beach Boys with you know, as many original members as they had at that point, because Dennis was gone. And really, I think what this record represents is just a return to form for them. You know, after the 60s, once the 70s started, and after Endless Summer, they kind of lost themselves because they'd been making great music for so long, and then Endless Summer comes out, it kind of propels them into light again, and then, you know, 15 Big Ones was kind of their comeback album of the 70s. This one was their comeback album of the 80s, 100%, and really, I just think this was the album that the band needed, the fans needed, and just the public needed to, you know, know that the Beach Boys were still out there making music. So, this was released on June 10th, 1985, first album in 5 years, as I said, and what an interesting album. I'll start with the production. I'll let you listen to the back a little bit to this song. You can hear it, you can hear the drum machine, you can hear the synth bass, the keyboards. This is kind of a quiet part of this song, but the production is unlike anything they did before this. It was the 80s, so all the 80s cliches, synthesizers, loud drums, reverb, just, you know, not my favorite era production. A lot of people like it, but, you know, it's all on here. barely any real instruments. Almost every song has a drum machine, keyboards, super just over the top, overproduced 80s. And I don't think it's their greatest, but I think it has a certain charm that gives its album its unique quality. That's what I have to say about it. The production isn't amazing, and I think it is one of their least professional produced albums. You know, it was produced by a professional producer, and it sounds, you know, solid, but it doesn't sound it doesn't really sound, you know, it hasn't aged well. That's what I'm trying to say. You know, this album is confined to its time. It's very dated. You know, not as much as Still Cruising or Somewhere in Paradise, but it's still a very dated album. And no, not songs, but in terms of the production is very dated. So that's just something to look out for. You know, if you're not a huge fan, if you don't like that production at all, you might have a hard time with this one. But if you really like it, if you like the fun sound, the loudness, you like the energy, you're gonna love it, because this album is just 80s all the way. So I'm just gonna start with the track list because I don't want to make this video too long. My last attempt at this review went to like almost exactly 30 minutes, and that's what I'm trying to cap them off at. So I'll just start with the song. So, Get Your Back. So this opens the album, and what a fucking song, written by Mike Love and Terry Melcher. It was released as a single in '85 as well. I don't know if it was before or after this album came out. I think it was after, but it is absolutely amazing. The energy and the vibe is just completely Beach Boys. You know, the biggest reason this album is ahead of MIU, LA, and Keeping the Summer Alive is because this is a Beach Boys album that sounds like the Beach Boys. Those other three albums are solid, they have some amazing tracks, and they have some very, you know, creative moments on them, but my problem with them is they didn't really feel like a band that was together as a unit. It sounded like the different members making their own shit, just separate from each other, and hobbling it together for just some album that the record label wanted them to make. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, I just think it comes off as less genuine. This album is not like that at all. You know, though there is no Dennis, Brian, Mike, Carl, Al, and Bruce all have, you know, their own their own songs and their own ideas, and they all collaborate on each other's tracks just in terms of singing the leads, which they always did, but really it's strong on this album, I think. And Get Your Back is no different. This song really reminds me of 60s Beach Boys. Now, though it has the 80s production, it's very modernized for its time period, and I think it's infinitely more dated than those early 60s recordings. It has the same vibe, the songwriting, you know, just the harmonies, the atmosphere. It's just beachy and nice and just calm and catchy. You know, that's what the Beach Boys were known for. And this one features Mike on the lead as he wrote it, and I think while he is extremely nasally, it comes across really well. It really fits the vibe of the song. The lyrics aren't anything deep. They're just, you know, love at its simplest, but I think his voice it goes with it. You know, it's nasally. If you really don't like his nasally voice, you might not be a fan of it. But I think it works really, really well. And I think it's a fantastic opener. I think out of, you know, the three albums that came before this one, I think it was the best opener on any of those, personally. She's Got Rhythm comes close, actually, but this one I think takes the cake because it's just Beach Boys. You know, it sounds like the Beach Boys. If you listen to the Beach Boys in 1965, this was 20 years later, it sounds like the Beach Boys. Sure, it's more modern, but it sounds like them in a good way. So, Mike and Terry, great job on that song. And actually, it was in, if you guys ever seen that that Herbie movie, like Herbie Reloaded or whatever the fuck it's called. I don't know actors in it, but it's like 2008 or something. It's in the opening of that movie, which is pretty interesting because I watched that movie when I was younger, and I don't think I ever noticed the song in there. I didn't even know what the song was when I was younger, but it's in that movie, so if you've seen it, pay attention for the opening, it's in there. So anyway, great fucking opening track. As I said in other reviews, the Beach Boys never missed, and Get Your Back is fantastic. And Brian going out on the ending, when he's I can actually look at the lyrics. I kind of forget when I do these reviews. It's kind of hard for me to remember everything on the spot, but it's a lyric sheet, by the way, nothing special. Just a black and white simple lyric sheet. But yeah. So he just when he's on the outro to the song, I need her and you need him. Like, I love that. It sounds so good. And his voice on this album is really aged. It had been 5 years since he had sang on a Beach Boys album, and his late 70s voice is known for being just really raspy and kind of messed up, but you know what, I liked it. I like that era of his voice, but it was definitely not in good shape. On here, he's definitely aged, but I think it sounds a lot more solid, which is cool. Track 2, It's Getting Late, written by Carl and his other collaborators from that era, Myrna Smith and Gary Cushing or something. I don't remember their names. They worked with him on his solo career, but anyway, what a fucking great song. Honestly, might be my favorite, one of my favorites on this album for sure. Just the vibe of it. It's really 80s, really synthy, and it's definitely dated, the production. I mean, when I say dated for this album, I mean the production, really. But the melody is just so infectious, it sticks in your head. I love his falsetto. Just the way he puts the words together. I love it. Again, nothing deep. It's just, it's getting late. Love each other. Do whatever. I don't know. But it works so well, and, like MIU, like, LA, the 1-2 punch of the first 2 songs is fucking great on this album. And, it really gets you into the vibe of like, oh, Beach Boys in the 80s, this is what it's like, this is what they're doing. And, I'm just going to take a sidetrack, but the album cover, while it's not my favorite from them, it really works, just no weird title, no, gimmicky album cover. It's just the Beach Boys. Huge text on a white background with beach in the letters. And I think it's just effective, it's not that, groundbreaking or anything. It's just, they didn't think of any better titles, but I think for a comeback album like this, for their first record in 5 years, I think it works. It's just the Beach Boys, they're still alive. Well, Dennis wasn't, but but the band, still kept going, and I think it's a good title and album cover for the period that it was released in. I don't think it's held up too well, and that's one of my reasons it's not higher, because I do think the songs on this album are great, but I just think it's a dated record, and it doesn't bring the album down too much, but it's very obviously hasn't held up as well as a lot of their better albums. But anyway, that was just a little tangent. I go off on those a lot. So, first 2 tracks, amazing. Next we get Al's song, Crackier Love, and this one's great. This one's super 80s. The synth slap bass, whatever it's on it, the keyboard bass. It's super obviously, not real and very programmed, but it sounds really cool. Al's vocal is great. This like the whole backing vocals are just really clean. And I love when Al just belts out his leads. Like, he was really great at doing that, and I think it works well in the song. Not a masterpiece by any sense of any means. Not a masterpiece by any means. I don't know what I'm doing. I can't talk. But good song, really solid. Al did a good job on that one. Maybe, I don't know, another song written by Carl. You can hear it in the back. So this one was interesting because this has lead guitar all over it, just shredding guitar. And it was done by Gary Moore, who was a popular guitarist from the 80s. I don't know too much about him, but I know that he was like respected. And there's a video of him in the studio recording this song. And he shreds. There isn't any other Beach Boys songs with this much guitar other than Bluebirds Over the Mountain from 2020 and The Forever from Summer in Paradise, which we do not speak of that song because it is cursed. But anyway, lots of lead guitar, great energy. It's really upbeat. I love Carl's voice, and this song actually really reminds me of Toto's Hold the Line. That's from like 78, I think. And it's really weird because I remember the first time I heard this album, that song came on. Not Hold the Line, maybe I don't know, I don't mean. But I listened to this album and Maybe I Don't Know came on. And I was like, this sounds familiar. And I was like, what is this? And then it came to me like, oh, this is like Toto. This sounds like Toto. And I don't know if they just took the idea or they just got inspired by it. But it sounds good. That song, Hold the Line, is an amazing song. So, getting inspired by it for the beat, for the rhythm, it's good. It works. And also, Get Your Back, the opener, sounds a lot like Hungry Heart from Bruce Springsteen. I cannot talk today. I don't know why, but a lot of Beach Boys fans have mentioned that this album has influences from other bands and artists, which is interesting. I don't know if they were just feeling the music of the time and they wanted to write something like it, or they just took the ideas. Who knows? But I think it worked really well, and I think that's a great song. The production, 80s, but it works. Last song on side 1, you can hear it in the background. She Believes in Love Again, written by Bruce. This is like the biggest ballad on the record. Like the calmest song, I would say, one of the calmest songs. And this is a great fucking song. Honestly, one of my favorites, up there with It's Getting Late and a couple songs on side 2. We'll get to that. So Bruce did a great job. His vocals, when he goes into it with the piano, really raspy, which is weird because you don't hear Bruce doing raspy vocals, really ever. He was always known as that really pristine high voice. So for him to be like raspy on this song is kind of interesting. But the star of the show is Carl's vocals on the chorus. So fucking good, so just soft, sweet, and catchy. It's just like, you get Bruce's rasp kind of in the bottom, and then Carl's kind of picks up the song to a new level. So I think it ends off side 1 really, really well. None of the songs on side 1 are absolute masterpieces or top tier Beach Boys songs, but they're all solid, and I think they're cohesive. Each song goes to the next, and it sounds similar, was written similar, and it has a similar vibe, which their previous albums didn't really have. Well, not all. The last 3, about from MIU to Keeping the Summer Alive, they were very scattershot albums that were just kind of, they were messes. I'm not gonna lie, they were very messy albums. This one's really tight, and I'll give it that. While it's not the most, the level of artistic inspiration that they put into this album, while isn't the highest or even close to the highest in their career, its cohesiveness in terms of its overall sound and songwriting is really strong, and that's what puts it ahead of the other 3 prior albums I covered. Because while those definitely had better highlights, better highs, the best moments on those I think were better than on here. Overall, those ones have a lot of just songs that don't hit the mark at all for me, are right down there as some of their lowest. This album doesn't have it. Almost every song on this album is really great for me. So, anyway, side 1, as I said, solid. Side 2 opens up with a controversial song, probably the most controversial on this album, California Colin. This one was written by Al and Brian, I am pretty sure. I'll have to check that again, because sometimes I forget. So, California Colin, yeah, Al and Brian. So, this one is either you love it or you hate it. It's basically just them reminiscing about the past in the 60s, how, the surfing, the summer, they're popular, the Beach Boys, whatever. And it's kind of cheesy. It's not kind of cheesy. It's really cheesy. I'm not gonna lie. Mike's vocal is really corny, and the lyrics aren't great, but it's so catchy. Al's voice on the chorus is so fucking good. I'm not gonna understate that at all. Al's voice is great on this song, and I really like the harmonies. I really like just like the vibe of the song. The backing. You can hear it in the background. Upbeat. Mike's voice is nasally, but it was on this album, and I think it fits with the songwriting because it's not trying to be something extravagant. It's just 80s fun Beach Boys, and in the 60s they're known for being a fun band. This is a fun album. And California Colin, great song, and fun fact, Ringo plays the drums, and it's the only song in the album with real drums. Now, that being said, the drums kind of sound like shit, but real drums, I'm not going to complain. And there's a video of him recording, which is cool. So, good song. Not one of my favorites on the album, but I think it has its purpose, it's energetic, and it's fun. And I'll give it that. It's really fun. Next, Passing Friend. This one was actually written not by any members of the band, but George O'Dowd and Roy Hay. I don't know who they are, but they wrote the song for the band, and it's good. It's really good. I think it was sort of a tribute to Dennis because, on the back it actually does say, this album is dedicated to the memory of our brother, cousin, and friend. And it's really sad, because this was the first album they made without Dennis. But I think it's a good tribute to him. I think, there's nothing worse than a passing friend. It's true. It's relatable to a lot of people. Relatable to me. And I think it was relatable to the band. And it was something they could relate to when they were singing about it. And I think it had its place. The production, again, very 80s. And, dated. I'm not going to, stop saying that. It's definitely dated production. If you listen to this, you'll be like, wow, this is extremely 80s. Yeah, it's one of the most 80s sounding albums I've ever heard. But it fits in that time period. And on this song, I think it would have been a little better with, just their late 70s production cleaner. But, that would ruin the vibe of the album. And, it just keeps the same style, which I enjoy. I respect that. That just the style of this album just doesn't dissipate. It stays constant. Next, we have I'm So Lonely, written by Brian, and, Eugene Landy. So, he's credited on Brian's songs on this album, but I don't think he actually wrote them. You know, maybe he did, but I think his credits are only on there because Brian was contractually binded to give Landy credits to be on a Beach Boys album at the time. You know, Landy basically told the band, if you want Brian to work on this album, you have to give me credits. And I think Mike and Al and Carl all hated that, but, you know, they couldn't do anything about it if they wanted Brian. So, you know, I don't think Eugene Landy wrote any of it, which, if he did, interesting. But, you know, I don't think he did. And anyway, I'm So Lonely. Love it. Absolutely love it. You know, really, it's kind of, to me, it's kind of like the 80s in my room. Not saying it's not saying it's even a comparable song to In My Room, but just the vibe, you know, it's Brian really just by himself. He takes the lead the whole song, and just the lyrics are just relatable. You know, it's just really just saying, it's just like, I'm lonely. I just, nothing, you know, deep or mysterious about it. He's just really saying that he can be lonely at times. And, you know, one thing I really love about the song is the chorus when he does his falsetto. Sounds so great, and I think on Get You Back, actually, in the backing vocals, he does the falsetto. And I said in the MIU review that was basically like the last album where you would hear his falsetto, but on here he does some of it, and this is really the last time you hear his falsetto. It doesn't sound the same. It's definitely a more aged voice, but I think it works. It's not the most spot on, not as pristine and clean, nowhere near as pristine as his 60s falsetto, because his 60s voice was the greatest falsetto of anybody, I think. But it sounds really good on here. It's a really sincere song, and I think it's honest. I think it comes across as really honest. There's a video of him recording vocals in the studio, and it's just, he looks into it. You know, he's like, while it was a low era for him in terms of his life, the song comes across well, and I think it's a great song that he did a good job on. Next, so the reason that I didn't post my take 1 of this review is because the next song I forgot to fucking review. It's Where I Belong, written by Carl, I am pretty sure. Just gotta check real quick. Yeah. Written by Carl Wilson and Robert White Johnson. Don't know who that is. But this one, somehow I managed to gloss over it in the first review. I was looking at the track listing. I missed it, I guess. This one, this is a song that I often forget about that it's on this record because there's no hook to it. There's no, like, big catchy hook or chorus on this song like a lot of the other ones. So it kind of makes it more forgettable. But don't take that like I'm saying it's a bad song at all. It's one of my favorites on the album. It's absolutely beautiful. You know, more of a ballad again, like She Believes in Love Again. It's similar style to that. And Carl's voice is just great. The backing vocals on this song, and just for the whole album for that matter, are absolutely great. Pristine. You know, a lot of publications at the time said, you know, while this wasn't an amazing album, the voices were still amazing, and I have to agree. And, you know, as I'm doing this review, it's hard for me to remember exactly what the song sounds like, but just looking into the lyrics, you know, it's basically just saying, you know, where is my place in the world? Where do I fit? Where do I belong? And I think it's a good meaning. The voices on it, great. Carl's voice, great. And I think that's one you should check out from this album. I think it's a highlight. Definitely one of the best songs of this album. Don't know, I forgot it the first time. Next, I Do Love You. This one was written by Stevie Wonder for the band, and it's very interesting. So, to me, this doesn't really sound like a Beach Boys song. You know, just the style. You know, I know they had a lot of different stuff, but, you know, most of their stuff, even their more, like, experimental shit, still sounds like the Beach Boys. I Do Love You doesn't really sound like a Beach Boys song, but I still think it's a great song. And my theory for how it happened was Stevie Wonder, either it was a throwaway song for him, or it was a song that he really wanted to give to the Beach Boys because he respected them a lot. Not sure which one it was. It could have been either, but it really is a good song, I think, and I think, you know, the chords on it are really cool. I like Carl's voice. Just a great song, I think, and, you know, as I'm saying this for all these songs. They're not amazing masterpieces, but they're great, they're solid, and they have, you know, just good vocals, really good vocals, good lyrics, good melodies, good rhythms, and, you know, not great production, but cohesive production. It sounds similar in all the songs, and no different with that song. Next, okay, so the last song on this album, but not really, so I'll explain that. So, when this album came out in '85, it came out on LP, which I have, and then it came out on CD, which was the first time a new Beach Boys album had been released on CD upon release date. So, on the LP, there's only the 11 songs in here, and as you can see on the last song, It's Just a Matter of Time, that was written by Brian and Mike, but on the CD, there was another song, which is a bonus track on there, which ended off the album on the CD version, and if you go on streaming, that's the last song, but I'll get to that. So anyway, the last song on the LP version, It's Just a Matter of Time, Brian and Mike, they do a co-lead, you know, they sing the lead together, and what a great song, honestly. You know, I think they took inspiration from the Everly Brothers to do the idea, but really, it reminds me of, like, if Surfer Girl was written in 1985, you know. The production is obviously 80s, you know, their voices are aged, but it has the same style and sound to it as, you know, Surfer Girl. Just the same kind of melody, the same kind of bridge, and it really is just a pretty song to end off the album, you know. It's, you know, darling, it's just a matter of time, like, nothing deep, and I'll say that about, you know, a lot of these songs, but it's effective, you know, it doesn't have to be deep, the lyrics don't have to be deep, it can just be, you know, nice and simple and sweet, and it works. And if I were to have any complaints with the song, it's that Mike's voice is a little too loud in the mix, and I wish Brian had more volume and Mike was a little lower, but other than that, it really is great. I really like the way they sing together, and I think, you know, on the LP, great closer. Now, on the CD, which I don't have, but I should get it someday, the song that closes out that version of the album is a song called Male Ego, written by Brian and Landy, but who knows if Landy actually was on it at all, wrote anything. So it's a Brian song, and, okay, it's controversial, okay, cheesy, corny, weird, it's very weird. So, you know, the chorus is like, you know, bet your boys will be, chasing down those tasty ladies, we'll be doing it in our 80s, something like that. So it's just about finding girls, you know, being young, having sex. I don't even fucking know. I don't even, just girls and fucking, that's what the song's about. But I love it. I love it so much, you know. Mike's lead on the verses, he comes right in. It's so solid and catchy. And then when Carl comes in the backing vocals and, you know, the drum machine comes in, it's so energetic, so upbeat, so tight. And when Brian's voice comes in, man, it just, oh, I love it. You know, he just belts out the lyrics. And, you know, the YouTuber Giggins, where I got, actually, if you're watching this, Giggins, thank you for the inspiration. He is actually the guy who inspired me to do these album reviews. But anyway, he did a review of this album years ago, and he said, you know, that was one of his least favorite Beach Boys songs. I'm gonna have to completely disagree. That out of, you know, even though it's not officially on this version of the album, the LP, you know, it is my favorite song out of all the songs on the album. You know, it's not the deepest, but it's so fucking catchy. It comes from the mind of Brian at this time, and the outro, out of all the parts of that song, the outro is what makes it for me. You know, everything else is amazing, but dude, that outro, when he's like, you smell nice, what's your name, you look nice, what's your name, oh man, I love it. And it just, you know, it's fun, it's just fun, it keeps you in a good mood, and I think it does a great job. So good job, Brian. Nobody knows that song, but listen to it, it's really funny. So anyway, review's been long enough. I didn't forget a song this time. So my thoughts on it: Beach Boys 85, June 10th, 1985. So overall, my pros for the album: the guys all have their songs and their moments that all sound, you know, great. The backing vocals are great, the leads are great. It's cohesive. You know, while the production is really dated and 80s and of its time, it goes to each song and sounds the same, which I really like, because it keeps the album, you know, sounding similar and not, you know, a mess of differently recorded songs. For example, like LA, which sounds a mess. I like the album, I really like the album, but it is a mess. This album is cohesive. You know, while it's not, you know, grade A art, the songs are really solid, and I think it was a good return to form for the band. I think this got them back on their feet. They played Live Aid in 85, and, you know, they didn't play, there's no videos of them playing any songs from this album that I know of, but, you know, it kind of got, you know, the younger audience of 85, you know, interested in them again, and, you know, that would, you know, compound until Kokomo came out and they blew up again. So this album, I'm gonna have to give like a 7.2 out of 10. I don't think it's a masterpiece, I don't think it's an amazing album, but I think it's a really, really solid album that's worth checking out. I'll put it in, you know, high C tier in the discography. I think it's really good, and for people wanting to hear 80s Beach Boys, I recommend it. So, highlights: most of the songs honestly are highlights, and you can just really listen to it, look into it, and see what you like from it. So anyway, I'll see you guys in the next review. Beach Boys 85, 7.2 out of 10. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.